Are you ready to debate how many powers Jack has? How about the ways that they overlap or happen at the same time? Does he have control over them? Join us on this adventure into an analysis of The Incredibles 2, where Jack stole the show. Moving from The Incredibles, showing about 4 powers, into The Incredibles 2, where he shows us something new almost every time we see him again, wreaking havoc on his family and home. We've never seen superpowers like these, and it feels like he's in a Marvel and DC comic in one. What will this mean for the Incredibles movies? Time to find out. We're first introduced to Jack's powers when he defeats Syndrome, who was trying to steal him to get back at Mr. and Mrs. Incredible. In order to escape abduction, he sets himself on fire, becomes a heavy metal, and becomes a monster or demon. He quickly returns to normal as he's falling before his mom catches him. Even with the alarming voicemails from the babysitter, the family doesn't put together that he may have started showing signs of superpowers. In the short Jack attack, we get hints at more of his powers, like levitation, wall climbing and/or gravity control, super strength, floating through walls or dimensions because it's still unclear, fire, and laser eyes. The way that Pixar and Disney showed us only some of his powers over time only increases our curiosity. At first, it seemed like maybe Jack has the power of the elements with fire and metal. Then he becomes a monster. After seeing everything that the babysitter dealt with while the Parrs were out saving one another and superheroes, the options became weirder. Maybe Jack has powers to control the space and atoms around him, but that isn't really a cohesive superpower option. Since we haven't seen anything like Jack, we have to make new rules. He isn't a being with powers that also have an object only he can use like Aquaman. He isn't just a 2 superpowers superhero like Wonder Woman. He doesn't have any technological parts giving him more powers like Cyborg. He doesn't have money like Batman. I mean, he is a baby. So what does Jack have? I broke all of his superpowers down into 3 categories. We have traditional powers, body manipulation, and mimicry or elemental powers. Some of the powers overlap between categories, and some of the powers may stem from one thing but look like different things. For example, Jack's ability to move through dimensions, intangibility, or moving through walls, climbing up walls, and levitation could all be the same superpower manifesting in different ways. We don't know this just yet. For traditional powers, we have super speed, super strength, laser vision, teleportation through dimensions, and telekinesis. 2 of these traditional powers Jack shares with his male family members. His dad and brother have super strength and super speed. Is there a possibility that the whole family has multiple powers they just don't know about? So far, we have nothing to indicate this, but it's worth asking. But Jack doesn't just have those 2 shared powers. He has others that are more mainstream super, like laser vision and telekinesis. These powers come in handy in the final fight when the Parr children save their parents. Jack is able to get the mind screen control goggles off of his mom, which sets off a chain of events that lead to Screenslaver's defeat and the freedom of the supers. We see that his telekinesis lifts the goggles when he scrunches his face and moves them. On a more humorous side, we also see Jack using this power to put the lid on the trash can mid-raccoon fight. Laser vision also comes in handy when his sister Violet helps aim and shoot down a mind-controlled super in the last fight. When first discovered, though, the laser skill was much funnier to his siblings and father, who aimed Jack like a gun and made pew-pew sounds. For body manipulation powers, we have cloning or duplication, shape-shifting or mimicking, size-changing, turning into a demon or monster, levitation, stretching, and intangibility or moving through walls. He also sometimes sneezes, and something akin to rocket exhaust comes out of his nose and shoots him many feet into the air. Not sure if this counts as a superpower or not, but his family will hope he doesn't have allergies. This was a tough category to come up with because of how a lot of these overlap with traditional and mimicking. But ultimately, all of these powers have to do with what Jack can do to or with his body. Creating multiples of himself came in handy when fighting the raccoon, but also caused an interesting phenomena for Edna Mode when playing Mozart. He also uses mimicking to make himself an image of Edna with a round nose, large eyes, and eventually her classic dark bob. As if she needed any more buy-in, this piqued her interest and is a very cool power to use rhetorically. We see also that he is able to manipulate his body almost at will and in line with his emotions. When he's upset not to get cookies for coming back to the dimension his family can see him in, he turns into a demon monster and screams. The levitation makes for more complicated dimension changing as he is able to float through the air, and as far as we know, any dimension invisible to the human eye. Finally, for mimicry or elemental powers, we have fire, fireworks, gas or smoke, metal, liquid, electricity or lightning, and sticky. This category is both mimicry and the elements because of the way Jack is able to appear to take on properties of elements. He mimics fire by bursting into flames, which create a charred path wherever he goes. He is able to either mimic or become metal, smoke, and liquid when we see Edna Mode checking for various properties. She does this because of genuine intrigue, but Jack-Jack also poses the most unique design challenge yet. We don't see how much of these elemental powers are particularly helpful in battle, because he only uses fire and metal in the first and second Incredibles. But directors and animators show us all these revelations about his powers to increase interest in the breadth of Jack-Jack's powers. When he is in the liquid phase, he holds his shape until Edna pokes him. Then water starts to trickle out. When metal, he has all the properties, including appearance, weight, and bulletproof. With all these powers, again, it raises questions. Who is Jack-Jack? How did he get all these powers, and what do they mean? In an effort to figure out how to explain what Jack-Jack's powers are, there are a few options. He is a polymorph, which is when an organism or object takes many forms. It doesn't explain why he has so many forms, but it gives just a tad more context. Edna Mode explains this to Mr. Incredible when he picks up Jack-Jack from her house after babysitting. Jack-Jack could be phasing because of molecular vibrations. All of Jack-Jack's powers have to do with manipulation of something, whether it be space, form, or the elements. Molecular vibration occurs when atoms are in constant motion and are constantly changing state. Jack-Jack could have control over his own atoms and their molecular vibration in order to change from physically average baby to monster to conductor of lightning. When the Parr children are using Mr. Incredible's car to rescue their parents, there is a moment when Jack-Jack is able to alter the time and space around all three of them. This hints that the control he has isn't just internal, but may hint toward his ability to pull electricity or water from the atmosphere. It may also be why he is able to effortlessly open and close portals just large enough for him to other dimensions close enough to our own that he can be heard giggling. Edna Mode called Jack-Jack pure, unlimited potential. She is mesmerized by him, sees him as an art and a muse, and does a lot of the work to begin to understand him. She's the first person to name him as a polymorph, and the ways that he can understand beyond his age. When Mr. Incredible first goes back to pick up Jack-Jack, he is walking alongside Mrs. Incredible and Edna flaunting a lollipop and matching her facial expressions. It is with Edna that we learn Jack-Jack certainly responds to his surroundings. In a foreshadowing event, Jack-Jack responds quickly to Mozart when his babysitter in Jack-Jack Attack puts it on. He responds again when Edna plays it for him, but this time he duplicates or clones himself. She learns how to work with, instead of against, his powers with a supersuit that comes with special features. For fire, there's a self-extinguisher that lets out edible lavender goo to calm him as well as put out the fire. This attends to the ways his powers react to his feelings. She places a tracker in it with a screen that helps the family find him when he's in another dimension, but still technically floating invisibly throughout their world. We learn that while Jack-Jack only has so much control over himself and his powers, he is much more aware than the average 1-year-old. He knows how Edna dotes on him, takes advantage of his dad's fatigue, and gets many cookies before his new supersuit and Frozone give him other non-sugar options. He finds a way to fight a raccoon, and because of how walls are nothing to him, he could get in a lot of trouble. It's unclear if he's really lucky or if the powers naturally kick in to save him from falling from great heights or the fireball he becomes. It isn't a power per se, but he moves through the world easily. His powers aren't easy for anyone around him, but he is able to do what he wants. Walls are nothing, space and time is nothing, and his many powers lend themselves to any trouble he gets into. He also knows how to fight. He has super strength, but the martial arts moves he pulls out to fight the raccoon are impressive. He's also one for the drama when the raccoon is almost caught and Jack-Jack becomes a fireball to slowly move closer to the raccoon, throwing chairs out of the way to increase the suspense. Jack-Jack is remarkable. He has all the powers, but again also has the fighting and flair of the superheroes and Hollywood we're familiar with. His powers often work in tandem or happen at the same time and phase quickly from one into the next. Because of the ways that fire and lightning happen at the same time or moving through dimensions and floating work together, it's almost like Jack-Jack has unlimited powers. Because of this, and because of how ambiguous the slight differences in powers are, I don't think there is a number of powers that Jack-Jack has. We just have to hope that Disney and Pixar make a third, hopefully sooner than 14 years from now, but maybe set a little bit more in the future. Maybe in a next movie we can learn more about his powers, because we only know about the Parr family and his friend Frozone. We don't know much about other supers. How many supers have super babies together? Is there some chance that Jack-Jack could have inherited all that it means to be super? Time will tell. Like and subscribe for more content like this. Jack-Jack is definitely an enigma, And while we now understand a little bit about the powers he has, we are still left with many questions. We're sure to see more of Edna Mode and her love of Jack Jack's many skills and development into the next Mozart if they ever write a third Incredibles. His polymorphing and elemental power combined with traditional powers leaves us on edge and eager for more. As a baby with some control, all that he could do growing up, learning his power and using it to fight crime is exciting. Thanks for watching.